Hello and welcome to the 5 Minute Film Club, and this week I'm going to make you a review you can't refuse. Hi, sorry for interrupting the credits, but I've just got to read this statement here. It says, I couldn't let the video go any further without saying I'm sorry for that joke. It's neither new or clever, and I promise not to do it again. I also promise not to joke about any horses' heads in beds. I promise not to do a Marlon Brando impression. Okay, roll titles again. The Godfather was released in 1972 and is based on the hugely successful, if slightly trashy novel. The story is the saga of the Corleone mafia family, just after the Second World War. We are first introduced to Marlon Brando as Vito Corleone at his daughter's wedding, meeting people who want his help sorting out problems. Brando plays Vito with a huge presence that is both powerful and subdued. His son Michael, played by Al Pacino, is back from the war and wants to remain on the outside of the family business. However, when the old man refuses to invest in another one of the five families' drug business, he is gunned down and leaves the fate of the Corleone family in jeopardy. Who will ever fill the big man's shoes? Gangster films at the time that The Godfather was being made were nothing new. There had been many films over the years that dealt with the mob. However, they were almost exclusively moralistic tales. The mafia was always 100% the baddie of the film, and even though they looked cool and everything, they would never make it out of the film in one piece. Francis Ford Coppola took the mafia film into new directions. Although The Godfather still revelled in the crimes perpetrated by the mafia, it also focused on their families, allowing the audience to see these gangsters as real people. This isn't a clear-cut story of right and wrong. The further we get into the film, the more blurred those lines get, as we start to sympathise with these characters. As much emphasis is placed on the domestic issues and dinner scenes as on the actual violence. This is definitely not the film the studio wanted Coppola to make. What they wanted was a quick turnaround on a novel that was #1 on the bestseller charts around the world. They didn't want this film to be a period piece. That would cost too much and take too long. They didn't want Al Pacino, an Italian American, to play the part of Michael. They wanted Robert Redford, quite categorically and obviously not an Italian American. Marlon Brando as well, they were deeply unhappy with, and as the production went on, they started having doubts about this young director. Would he be up to the job? And so they started scouting around for his replacement. In fact, everything that is successful about The Godfather at one point was criticised and put in jeopardy by the studio. So why is this film so highly revered? And how successfully am I able to answer that question? The simple answer is that everything in the film just works. One very clever element, I think, is to keep the film as a period piece. Immediately, this gives the film a nostalgic filter, and it allows us to buy into it as a piece of history. Everything that then goes into the making of the film, what you see on the screen, just feeds into that nostalgic feeling. The story, for example, feels like a piece of classical theatre. It's a story structure the audience is familiar with. The Godfather then ties all these elements together with several documentary-style scenes and the wonderfully seductive cinematography by the Prince of Darkness himself, Gordon Willis. Willis's work allows us to understand these characters' complexities just by how they are lit. The film is doing all the heavy lifting for us, so our job is just to sit back and watch the action unfold. Now, what I like about all those things is that they perfectly complement the main theme of the film. I think this film is all about upholding traditions and is told using established storytelling methods. All of this works so well that on initial viewing we miss that this film is not entirely about gangsters really. Coppola takes the source material and with it is able to tell us a story about the destructive nature of capitalism, and it also highlights the Italian-American experience. Now, I'm not somebody who's watched The Godfather multiple times, and I think it is a film that really does benefit from seeing it again and again. When I started doing these film reviews, I was nervous about ever tackling The Godfather. Now that I've actually sat down, watched the film with this video in mind, I understand that actually The Godfather is incredibly easy. It's not to say it's simple, it's incredibly complex. It's easy because it is so good. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I've got a question for you. Which is better, The Godfather or The Godfather Part 2? Maybe you even like Part 3. And actually, there is a bit of news on that front. A couple of weeks ago, Variety said that Francis Ford Coppola had actually re-edited Part 3 in order to try and get across his initial intentions for that film. I wonder whether this cut will just get rid of Sofia Coppola. But anyway, I'm not judging you if you really like Part 3. I will actually probably review The Godfather Part 2 and Part 3 before the new version is released in December. Will be interesting. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel so you can see my next review, which will be the 40th anniversary review of Friday the 13th. And I really like Friday the 13th, and I like horror films, and I've even got a special t-shirt to wear for the occasion. So I will leave you with that thought and see you next week. Goodbye!